Hello, everyone. I'm going to give us a couple more minutes to let some other students get into the Zoom as well. This being the first class, it might take some people a couple more minutes to find us. So if you guys want to stay muted and stuff for the next like 5 minutes, that's fine. And we'll give the other students time to get into the Zoom. Okay. Okay, if everyone would please come on their screen, we're going to go ahead and get class started. Awesome. Well, welcome to maternal and newborn nursing. I'm very excited to have all of you in my class this term. Um, Today is a little bit of an orientation mixed with we are going to be covering some content towards the end of class. So we'll start with some introductions and I'm going to take attendance. Um, I'm Leanne, I'm Professor Young. I've been a nurse since 2018. My background is primarily in labor and delivery, but I'm also work in the OR. So I scrub, circulate, assist with surgeries. I'm currently PRN on the labor and delivery unit and primarily work in the OR. which I really love OR nursing. It kind of snuck up on me. That's not something that you see a lot of when you're in nursing school. So I didn't really get a lot of experience with it, but I love it. The OR is awesome. If you guys get a chance to see a shadow in an OR, I would definitely recommend it. I've really loved it. I live in Ohio with my husband, our two golden retrievers, and our two cats, and I'm currently pregnant with our first baby, so I'm due in May. So you guys don't shouldn't hopefully have to worry about me going into labor, but next term that'll be a worry for the next term. So um super excited we're having a girl. This is my second semester teaching with Fortis. I really love this course. I think that it sets you guys up for a really good base knowledge of maternal and newborn nursing. Granted, not all of you are probably wanting to be labor and delivery nurses, and that's perfectly fine, but we need this information not only for NCLEX, but to make us well-rounded nurses. So it's really good stuff to get. Um, some things that I want to mention at the beginning of class. For to get a hold of me, if you send me a message on Canvas, I should get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, depending on when you reach out. I was working night shift, so it was harder for me to get back to students quickly. But now when I'm on the day shift rotation, I should be able to answer your messages pretty fast. If you do not hear from me within a 48-hour time period, send me another message or reach out to Danielle McBride, who is our course lead. Okay. Her contact information is available to you guys on that orientation PowerPoint that we're going to go over. Okay. Um, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick attendance and see who we're missing. This being the first class, I'm sure some students might come in a little bit late because they need to find my Zoom and, get into Zoom. So we'll just run through. If you're here, just unmute, say here, and then we'll move forward, okay? If I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. Please correct me so I don't say it wrong the entire term. Okay. So, Lori Austin Elder. Okay. Tiffany Burns. Jose Caldera.
Here.
Jade Carter.
Here.
Olivia Chesser.
Here.
Gladys Gomez.
Here.
Tyler Hearn.
Here.
Catherine Jimenez. Oh, I see you, Catherine. I didn't hear you say here or not, but I see you. Linda Jones.
Here.
Ashley Keys.
Here.
Daniela Roldan.
Here.
Shayna Rutley.
Here.
Cortez Spruill.
Here.
Christian Stockman Heim. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said that right, but I don't think they are
I
here.
just shot her a text message. I think she was confused on the Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. That makes sense. Janaea Taylor. Okay, and then Miriam Zuleta Hernandez.
Here.
So, alrighty. So what I want us to do now is, if you guys could each just take a couple seconds, say your name, tell me what campus you guys are at, why you decided you wanted to be a nurse, and maybe a fun fact about yourself. That way it'll help me remember everybody. Catherine, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, you want me to say what?
Say your name, what campus you go to, why you want to be a nurse, and a fun fact.
Okay. My name is Catherine Jimenez. I go to the Pensacola campus. I want to be a nurse because I don't know, it's just always something I wanted to do. I was a school teacher for 3 years, and that definitely was not for me. So I decided to try this route. And I have 2 daughters.
Awesome. That's exciting. Thank you. Okay, Jose, you're up next.
So my name is Josue. I'm from the Color Bay campus in Miami. I want to be a nurse because there's just so much we can actually bring to the society. And a fun fact, I love scrolling through X.
Awesome. Okay, Cortez, go ahead.
Cortez Sproul. CJ is fine. I answer to both, whichever one you remember easiest. I go to the Fortis campus. I chose to be a nurse. I pride myself a lot in being able to help people in all around. So I've done the physical, I've done the like in terms of your actual physical body, then your visuals, how you look. I've taken in a hobby that addresses all of those. So nursing is the only one left that makes sense. So I feel like that'll help me be more well-rounded with different patients in different environments for different reasons. So,
Definitely. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
fun fact, I'm an Air Force veteran, I guess. That's
Oh,
fun.
awesome. My brother-in-law is currently serving in the Air Force.
I'm sure he's having a good time.
He loves it. Yeah, he works, he does the plane maintenance. So I think he likes it.
Oh yeah, he's having a good time. You doing maintenance? I
Yeah,
did operations. I drove convoys, but
oh,
we drove
geez.
them to the planes.
Wow, gotcha.
But his job is important. So, anyways.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Gladys.
So my name's Gladys. Um, so I go to the Pensacola location, the campus. So I have a lot of family members that have been nurses in my family, so I've always wanted to do nursing. I like the fact that there's so many options to go, so many routes to go for as far as nursing. Um, I did graduate from Fortis for my medical assisting, so I worked in peds. For about 2, 3 years, and I currently work in the ER. Um, and fun fact, I am bilingual, and so I think that also um, is another reason why I also want to be a nurse, especially like I always want to advocate and help the Hispanic community as well. Especially because I always feel that in the medical field is like a really important place where you should be able to fully understand what is going on and everything that has to do with your health.
That's a great point. Yeah, that is going to help you a lot and help your patients a lot. They're going to be very grateful to have you around and taking care of them for sure. Thank you. Okay, Shayna.
My name is Shayna Rutley. I go to the Pensacola campus. I want to be a nurse because I like helping people. I like geriatrics to be exact. And fun fact, I have three doodles, no children.
Three doodles.
Yes.
Oh, you're a dog lover.
Yes.
Me too. That's so exciting. I love that. Thank you for
You're
sharing.
welcome.
All right, Jade.
My name's Jade. I go to the Pensacola campus. I decided I want to become a nurse because I've been a patient care tech for 4.5 years. And when I started, I said I refused to be a nurse, but ended up loving my job and taking care of people. So here I am. A fun fact about me is while I don't have any kids, I have a Siberian Husky and a Maine Coon tortoiseshell mix that fight like they are kids. So no kids anytime soon here. We're good on that aspect.
You're good on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. All right, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Jones, and I go to the Pensacola campus, and I enjoy nursing all around. You can somewhat say that it's part of we say quote unquote ministry, and I just love helping people, um, especially those that can't help themselves. So it's a good thing for me. Okay, and I do have a Yorkie.
Oh, nice. I love all the pets.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you. All right, Ashley, you're up.
Ashley, I'm at the Columbia campus. Um, I'm currently an EMT. working with a 911 service, and I wanted to further my career by going into the emergency room as a nurse, be a trauma RN. Um, Fun fact, I got two kids, two pets, and they're all crazy.
You're living the dream.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We definitely need more ER and trauma nurses, that's for sure. That area of nursing is a little bit short right now, so that's good that you want to go into it. All right, Olivia.
Hey, I'm Olivia. I am at the Pensacola campus, and I've just always wanted to be a nurse. Just love helping people and getting to take care of them. Fun fact about me, I do have a kid, and since we're talking about dogs, we have a puppy. So technically, I have two
Oh my
kids.
goodness, welcome to class.
They-
So cute. I love it. Thank you. All right, Daniela.
Hi, my name is Daniela. I'm at the Cutler Bay campus. I want to be a nurse to help people and like be like genuine with people instead of just like kind of trying to get my work done and actually help people. And a fun fact, um, I don't know. I don't really have any fun facts.
That's okay. You're in nursing school. There's not a lot of time for hobbies and fun things, so it's okay. No worries. All right, Miriam.
Well, hi, my name is Miriam. I am in the Cutler Bay campus too. And I want to become a nurse, not just because of the fact that I'm helping people, also because I grew up in a very poor environments with my mom and dad. So now I want to give them back whatever they do to make me feel comfortable and safe. And a fun fact. Maybe it's that it's very, for me, it's very interesting. The maternity thing, all that a woman can do to have a baby is very special, but I don't want kids. Like, no,
That
it's
is
not for me. I love kids. I love spend time with them, but I don't want my own, like 24/7 kids. No.
fair enough. Not everyone does, and that's all right.
Young.
Yeah.
Janaya is coming. She had the time mixed up.
Okay. Yeah, no
Janaya
worries.
Taylor. Okay.
This first week, we give you guys a little bit of slack on it because, everyone's trying to find Zoom. If this is your first time in an online class setting, it is a little bit different. So, no worries. Whenever everyone can get here, that's perfectly fine. All right, Tyler, I think you're the last one that we have to introduce.
Tyler. I'm at the Pensacola campus. I want to be a nurse because it's just, I guess it gives you something different every day. It's not the same thing, and you're not like stuck behind a desk 24/7. I guess a fun fact would be that I want to be a ER nurse.
Awesome. We got two ER nurses in the making. That's great. ER is the one area of nursing that I never ever wanted to do, to be completely honest. But, in labor and delivery and even in the OR, you find yourself down there. So it'll be good. Okay, so quick show of hands. Whose is this first like online class with Fortis?
It is, well, I did online, but um not through Zoom. Like our first classes that we had were online, but they were not like through Zoom or proctored or anything. So this is my first time, which granted, I have to figure out how to get that exam soft and all that. And I've been reaching out to the school and to the what is it called? Like the help desk and stuff like that,
Okay,
because for some reason mine doesn't want to populate anything at all.
gotcha. So if you want, after class, we can stay and I can try and point you in the right direction.
Okay.
Of who to reach out to for that. I also probably have a couple of contacts that I can send. As far as ExamSoft, downloading that software and having that ready on your computer, you guys should receive some email instructions on that. It also is in your introduction on Canvas, and it should be in that like first module. So here in a couple of minutes, I'm going to run us through Canvas and show you guys where like important stuff is, what we're going to be using throughout the semester, all that stuff. Because The online setting, I think, is beneficial because you guys can be at home. It is a little bit more flexible for schedules. You know, it allows me in Ohio to teach you guys who are in Florida, you know. It's pretty cool. But there are some learning curves to it that can sometimes make just focusing on the material difficult because you're trying to understand all the, you know, background stuff, how to access certain things. So we're going to run through Canvas and I'm going to go through some things that I think will help you guys be successful in this class. And we'll go through a bunch of that stuff. Okay. But if you guys at any point ever have questions, always feel free to stay after and meet with me as well. That's also an option. Okay. Okay. Show of hands. Who wants to be a labor and delivery nurse or work in maternity in some way, shape, or form? All right. Cool. We got somebody. Last term, I don't think I had really many people that wanted to be in labor and delivery, which is fine. It's very specialized. Um, so with maternal and newborn nursing, one of the hardest things that students have with this course is how specialized it is, right? So you guys go through med surg, you learn specific things, you learn your anatomy, you learn your patho, your pharm, your phys, all that stuff. With labor and delivery and maternal newborn, all of that stuff gets kind of jumbled because you're not only taking care of one patient, you're taking care of two patients who are in within the same body, right? So we need to understand, how does that pathophysiology come into play? What kind of interventions do we need to do? What is our primary focus whenever we have a problem going on? Because now it's not just what is your ABCs for taking care of this one specific patient. It's now you have two patients. Who is this impacting? And what do we have to do to rectify it, right? So, maternal and newborn nursing has a little bit more layers whenever it comes to like the pathophysiology standpoint. This semester, I'm formatting my class a little different. Last term, I lectured the entire course, which I think there is some benefit into that, but I wanted it to be a little bit more interactive this time around. So every week, I'm going to be sending out an announcement. And within that announcement, you guys are going to have access to a recorded lecture that I will have already pre-recorded for you. Okay. So in that recording, that is going to be, I'm lecturing the material that you need to know for that week. Okay. So they should be about like an hour and a half. My PowerPoints can range from like 30 to 50 something slides, depending on the content that needs to be covered on a weekly basis. So you guys will be responsible for watching those recordings before you come to class, preferably, okay? Because our class time is going to be spent um, going more in depth on the material and doing some more interactive things, okay? So I know one class time, excuse me, for 1 week, I'm going to have you guys break into small groups and work on making a teaching plan over some of the information that we cover in this week, in week one. Another class time, I'm going to have you guys break out into teams and come up with your own trivia game that the class is going to play all together. But then within those announcements, I'll also include a PowerPoint that I want you guys to save for class. And it's going to be the one that we go through together during class time and fill in like blanks. So there's going to be some questions, some matching things, and we're going to be using that primarily during the class to kind of go over the material that we're learning, okay? But I go over all this to say it's very important for you guys to watch those lectures because we're not going to be hitting on every single detail that you need to know for like class, for your exams in class time, okay? Does anyone have questions on that yet? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to get into Canvas. To kind of give you a breakdown of how today is going to look, we're going to go through Canvas, the syllabus, our orientation PowerPoint that Dr. Brown made for us all. We'll go through your homework assignments and how to be successful when completing those. And then I'm planning on taking a break probably around like 3:15-ish. And then after that break, we're gonna lecture on our first week material. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Awesome. So when you open your course, this is what your Canvas is going to look like, right? And for those of you who have taken a um, online course with Fortis, this might be review, but it is also going to be helpful for you because our class might be set up differently than the classes that you've had before. Okay, so this is your welcome. It says to start here. You can click into this link and it'll take you to your introductory stuff. Down here is a list of all of the different things that are important for you. Like here's your help desk. So like Gladys, you mentioned that you were having a hard time reaching out to anybody to get like information about your exam soft. You can click on this little link on your Canvas and that should give you a direct access to your help desk. Okay. Down here is the course cafe. Let's see if I can go into it. Yeah. So I posted something last night in the course cafe. Um, this space is not graded. Okay. So this is not like a graded assignment. It's not something that is like regularly monitored by myself or other professors. But I do see what you guys put in here. So, like if you have questions or if you guys find like a really awesome resource that has helped you and you want to share that with the class, this is somewhere you can post that. Okay. I just posted this cute little like in 2026 I will blank. And so you guys can comment if you have like a resolution or there's something that you want to do this year. And so this is a good resource for us to interact outside of like discussion forums and more like formal classroom setting. Okay. So you can go back to your homepage. That'll bring back up that whole screen we were just on. Okay. In your announcements, this is where a lot of the really important information that I want you guys to see on a weekly basis is going to come. Okay. You guys got bombarded with announcements like the first day the class was posted because all these announcements you see from OB medications down to your ebook information, that's all stuff that Professor McBride puts into every course. So every student has access to all of these announcements. My announcements that come straight from me are going to be more pertinent to our class. Okay. So every week I'm going to post an announcement like this one, this welcome to week one. Okay. So in this announcement, I'm going to be telling you what chapters of the book you need to read. Okay. If there's a recorded lecture, like I mentioned, it's going to be posted in here for you. And that is going to be how you're going to access it. Usually, I make YouTube videos, so you guys will be able to access it through YouTube, but you'll need the link in order to get to it. So that'll be on your weekly announcement. The watch and take notes is going to be telling you what you need to watch, your recorded lecture, what we're going to be covering. This week, I wanted you to look over our course syllabus, which we're going to go over all together here in a couple minutes. And then I always have the time of class and then my Zoom ID. Okay. So if you guys like, or you know a student who's having a hard time getting into my course or who lost the Zoom ID, my ID is always posted here. Okay. Um, and then I will always too have what is due for this week. So like this week we have that introduction discussion post that you guys have to do before Sunday, as well as your OB Math 1 assignment. So I'll have all of that posted for you in your weekly announcement. Okay? So definitely make sure you're reading through these very well whenever you're getting your stuff ready for the week, because it's going to have the most information pertinent to our section itself. Okay? Um, This stuff here, this instructor's weekly material, weeks 1 through 3, resources for weeks 1 through 3. So this is available to you guys, and it is all of the resources that every single professor who teaches this course for Fortis uses. Okay, so what they ended up doing for Fortis is they wanted to make sure that everybody was receiving the same material. Okay, to make it as fair for everyone. because there were students who weren't receiving certain things in other courses and some students that were wanting things from a different professor. So to make that kind of easier, Professor McBride puts all of this stuff here for you so that you have access to every single thing that all the other instructors are doing in their class. Okay. I think that these resources are awesome. However, it can be extremely intimidating if you are looking at all of this all at the same time. Okay. So, my advice to you is find what works the best. And that might not be my material, and that's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings because ultimately I want your success and I want you guys to be successful. So, if it's not my material, that's okay. Find that material and stick with it. Okay. If you try to go through every single resource that is available to you in Canvas, you are going to just stress yourself out. It's hours and hours and hours and hours of material. Okay. It's available to you, but that does not mean you have to use it. But we have all of the instructor stuff in weekly material and then resources for weeks 1 through 3. That's where you can find it. Okay. Any questions so far? Today is going to be information overload, so just, bear with me. I also posted this announcement on Saturday on how to complete our assignments. So we had a lot of questions last term, specifically whenever it comes to our sim chart assignment, on how we're going to receive full credit for the assignments, as well as how to complete them, what to submit, where to submit. So I made this little cheat sheet, how-to guide for you guys for your reference so that you can kind of see okay, for math, you're completing this on your own. You need to make sure you're rounding correctly. You can look at the resources and announcements for help. We're going to go through each one of these little sub assignments in more detail too, because I want you guys to make sure that you know what you're doing whenever the time comes for these to be posted. But this little announcement here is like the condensed version of how to complete your assignment and how to receive full credit. Okay. So that would be something that you guys can reference throughout the entire term, because that's going to be relevant for you basically up until week 12 whenever you're still submitting your homework and stuff, okay? Okay. Let's move on to our syllabus. I'm not going to read this whole thing because you guys have access to it, and that would make me really, really tired. So we're going to go through the big things that I want you guys definitely to know. And then if you guys have specific questions, we can go through those in a little bit more detail, okay? So this just goes through your student learning outcomes, what your requirements are. So you guys know that you need to score at least a 78% or higher on key graded assignments, okay? So what that means is our quizzes, our exams, and your maternity HESI assignment at the end of term. Those are your key graded assignments. Periodically throughout the term, I will turn your homework grades on so that you guys can see what your cumulative grade is with your homework. However, if at the end of term you do not have a 78% on your key graded assignments, even with your homework weight graded back in, you still will not be considered passing for the course. So you really need to make sure that your quiz grades, exam grades, and your end of the year HESI grade have you above that 78%. Okay? So that's what that means by having a 78% or higher on key grade assessments. So, but I unfortunately have seen it where a student will have an 82 in the class after all the key graded assignments have been graded and everything is submitted at the end of class. And then we put in their homework that they haven't completed all term and they end up failing the course because of their homework grade. So please don't let that be you. Homework is the easiest thing that you can get grades on. So make sure you're doing that and submitting it on time, because that would be the worst way ever to have to fail a class. Okay. So our class goes from 2 to 4:41 every Wednesday, Eastern time. And so that is our time together. You'll have that recorded lecture to watch every week, as well as the homework assignments to participate in. And then any other resource or study material that you use can be stuff that you pull from our announcements page. It can be things that you reach out to me to ask for, or things that you guys find and share amongst each other. So the amount of time that you put into the course um, needs to be the amount of time that you guys spend to feel prepared and ready for our exams and for the maternity exam at the end of the semester. Okay. I don't believe in giving that an assigned number of hours because for me, I would study maybe 5 hours a class in nursing school, but I knew some classmates who would study 20 hours a class in nursing school. So it's 100% per person. So I'm not going to assign you a specific hour amount that you need to be spending in my class. I personally just don't believe in that. It needs to be whatever is beneficial to you. Okay. You guys should all have a copy of our textbook, whether it's online or you have the physical copy. That'll be helpful for you to follow along with lectures. Let's go over attendance really quick. So your attendance is graded in 15-minute increments, okay? So if you log into Zoom at 2:01 p.m., you get marked off 15 minutes of attendance. Okay. The other important thing I want to note is whenever we do start having quizzes and exams, those get started immediately when we come on Zoom. Like for our quizzes, I will be like, all right, hey guys, go ahead and get your laptops open. I'm going to give you the access code, give you the code, and you start your quiz. It happens within like the first minute of class. So on quiz day, you guys need to make sure that you're in the Zoom, if not a little early, directly at 2 p.m. so that you can get that access code so you can take your quiz on time. Okay. Unfortunately, if you come in late to the Zoom, I will not be repeating the access code and you will have to get a 0 on the quiz. And I hate to do that. So just make sure you're in class on time. Okay. So as far as attendance goes, if you've missed 20% or more of my class, that could also be, you could be dropped from the course. Okay, so just coming to class is important, basically, is how to sum that up. So just come to your class, make sure. But if there is something that happens, like a medical emergency, like I am more than understanding. Please reach out to me, even if it is like right when class is starting. If you have appropriate documentation, you will be excused from that absence. Okay. But I say appropriate documentation, like you would need to show like a physician's note. Okay. Or if something else were happening, a note from whatever extenuating circumstance is going on. Okay. I did have someone ask if you can attend class with another professor at a different time during the week. Typically, the answer to that is no, because we want you to make sure that you're coming to the class that you are slotted for at the time that you've been designated to be there. However, like I said, if there are some extenuating circumstances that do not permit you to be in class at my class time and we're taking an exam and it's something like in a medical emergency, family emergency, whatever it may be, please communicate that to me, preferably as soon as possible so that I can reach out to Professor McBride and she can schedule you with another instructor. Okay. But like I said, that's like kind of last resort. We try to avoid doing that because we want to keep our class sizes to a certain number. Okay. All right. I think that covers attendance for the most part. Down here we have our grading scale that you guys can reference. The one thing I wanted to spend some more time on is the grading components and their values so that you guys can see what weight each assignment has that we're going to have during the class, okay? Your exams are going to make up most of your grade. Your exams make up 55% of your grade for this class, okay? So definitely trying to aim to do very well in your exams is going to help you in this course. Your quizzes make up 5%. We have 5 total quizzes throughout this term. And then your HESI maternity special exam is 20%. Okay, so those 3, like I said, are mentioned before, your key graded assignments, and those are the ones that you need to have at least over a 78% at the end of the term to pass the class. The rest of these assignments that are listed here are your attendance, and they're also your homework assignments, okay? So your Saunders NCLEX questions, those are 5%. Your case study assignment, that is your SIM chart. Students last term absolutely despised sim charts. So we went through, I think Dr. Roberts made a video on how to access your sim chart and how to find it and how to submit them. So that should be available to you in the announcements. Please review that before you start doing the case studies because it will be very helpful because it can be a little confusing when you first open up Evolve and are trying to find everything. Okay. Those case studies are really important. The thing with those are you only get one attempt whenever you open the assignment to submit it. So we don't let you do multiple attempts. This is supposed to mirror the NCLEX. This is supposed to help you prepare for your HESI. So we're giving you the one chance. The only difference is you are able to use your course materials for it, and you can take as much time as you need. Okay, so just spend the time that you need on those assignments so that you guys are getting as much credit as you possibly can get. Okay, because those do make a difference in your overall grade. The HESI practice exam and assignment exam will be taken like towards the end of class. That's going to help you prepare for the assessment at the end of class. Your discussion questions, there are 5 discussion posts this term. Those are 1%. Your teaching plan, which is a little project that we have you do, I believe it's in week 8 or 9, somewhere around there. That'll be 1%. We'll talk about that more the closer we get to it. Your OB math calculation, there's only 2 of them. Those are 1% of your grade. And then, like I said, you do need to attend your Zoom session to get receive your credit for attending class. Okay. Your clinical and your simulation for this class, I do not have any part in that. I don't even know your clinical instructor or your sim instructor's names. Like, we don't really communicate with them at all. So you should be going through your campus to get information as far as who your clinical instructors are, their contact information, and when the date and time of that class is, so that you know when you need to be there. Okay. But like I said, I do not have any information about that. So that is going to fall on your guys' campus that you go to, your respective campuses. The one thing I wanted to talk about with discussion posts. So your discussion posts, and I want to go over this in person so you guys know for sure, because I believe we have you have the introduction discussion post due this week, and then I think we have one next week that you guys will need to work on. Your initial response to that post should be due by Wednesday night, okay? So you should be responding in that discussion post 3 different times. So your initial post is due by Wednesday to receive full credit. If you submit that before Sunday, you'll still receive a penalty because we need that initial assessment assignment posted on Wednesday. Then you need to follow up on 2 of your classmates' posts in the discussion, and those can be submitted anytime before Sunday at midnight. You are not supposed to submit all of your assessments like at the same time. So they should be done on different days, okay? At least 2 different days to receive full credit for the assignment. Any questions about that? Awesome.
So you're saying don't do your 2 responses the same time.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is you have to have 3, so your initial assignment or a post, responding to the prompt. And then you can either post one to one student that day, but then you need to make sure you come back and do at least one other post on a separate day to receive full credit. It is a little confusing, and we went over that a little bit more in detail this term because last term some students were missing points on that, and it's easy stuff. So yeah, you need to post on 2 separate days. You have a total of 3 responses in each discussion forum. Along the lines of discussion, a really big thing that we've seen a lot has been AI use. That's obviously a huge thing now. I just downloaded Chat GPT. I feel cool now, I guess. Like everyone was telling me I had to. So But so when you do your discussion questions and your discussion posts, we are going to be submitting all of your posts through an AI generator or AI detector. Okay. Um, there's still a little bit of clarification that needs to come from Professor or from Dr. Brown as far as how we're going to grade them. But if we suspect that there is any AI use or I put it into a generator and it's flagging you guys or your posts at being 100% AI generated, I will have to give you a 0 on the assignment. I'll have to ask you to meet with me in person to discuss the grade, and then you'd have to either resubmit it or the grade would stand at a 0. Okay. If there's a change in that policy, I will let you guys know. But as far as I know right now, we are still supposed to be submitting all of our students' work through AI detectors. Okay, so just don't use it. Use your own words. It doesn't help you if you're using AI to answer these questions because it's supposed to be application from the stuff that you need to know for your exams, right? So using AI isn't going to help you in that. Okay. We talked about the key graded assessments, our final exam, your HESI exam. That's going to be covering every single thing that we've learned throughout the course. It's comprehensive. We'll talk more about remediation and how you get your scores towards the end of class, but basically you have to do your remediation after your HESI exam to receive your grade on your HESI exam. If you guys score really well and you don't remediate, unfortunately, you would still get a 0 on your HESI. So doing the remediation and making sure you're checked off on all of that is going to ultimately let you get your grade that you deserve. Okay, but we'll talk about that closer to that assessment. All right. Our late work policy. So what happens is you guys get access to each module on Sunday of the module opening. So you got access this past Sunday for week 1. This Sunday you'll get access for week 2, and so on and so forth. You're not going to have the ability to work ahead in this course. It is a week by week basis. That's mostly just to make sure that we keep the integrity of the online platform. And so your homework assignments are going to open on Sunday nights for you, and then they will close the following Sunday. So if you try to submit an assignment late, you'll still be able to submit it because we leave it open for an additional week after for that late grace period. But you need to reach out to me or you'll hear from me and I'll say like, hey, you didn't submit your sim chart for this week. Now it's Monday, a day late. What's going on? Do you plan on submitting it? And then you just need to have some communication with me saying, this is why I haven't submitted yet. I plan on submitting it blank. Okay. If you just go ahead and submit the assignment without communicating with me and it is late, we're technically supposed to give you a 0. Okay. So there needs to be some type of communication between us about that homework assignment. Okay. If it falls outside of that extended week, late penalty period, and you reach out to me then, your grade will be a 0 because we give you that extra week to kind of turn in a late assignment. But if it falls outside of that window, then that assignment will be graded as a 0. Okay. Even if you do communicate with me. Okay. Basically, the biggest thing I'm trying to get on is I am definitely a very understanding person. So if you reach out to me and there's some type of thing going on in your life, I would love to give you an extension on any assignment that I can. So just communicate with me throughout the term if there's something that comes up, okay? We have to deduct a 10% late penalty on any late homework assignment. So if you do submit an assignment late, I will still have to take off 10%, but you'll at least get some credit, and some credit is better than no credit. Okay. So here they have like a distribution of, out of class time that you guys can use if you would like. And then here we have our course outline. Okay. The best way for you guys to keep track of what is due when is going to be this course outline, or it's going to be you just following along in your modules for each week. Okay. And in class too, I'm going to say, hey, this is what's due this week. If you haven't turned in this, you can still reach out to me and get credit for it, whatever. So, but this course outline is a good thing to have, and it keeps you kind of in track of what to expect for the class. Okay. So like this week, We're going to cover chapters 1, 2, and 3 in our lecture towards the second half of class. And then the assignments over here that are listed are what is due for this week before Sunday. Okay, so it's a good way to just stay on track, especially when you get down to like really busy weeks, like week 6, where we have a lot of things going on, or whenever you need to know, okay, when do we have a quiz? If you haven't read our announcement or whatever, it'll show you in this outline. So it's really good to have this. Okay. This goes a little bit more into your simulation, and that really covers our syllabus for this class. Does anyone have any questions?
When will you post your recordings for the week?
Yeah,
The
that's a great
announcement.
question. So, we record all of our lectures. You guys will get access to the class. I post that the night of after class. Okay. Um, so that you guys can look through it again. If we do review games or whatever. This term I have a lot of Kahoot games that we're going to play at the end of class or during class. So that's going to be really awesome for you guys to reference back to, especially when you're studying. So I try to have those posted for you by the end of class, about the night of class is over. If I don't get it posted immediately right away, it's because I'm also teaching another class that starts at 5:30 p.m. and goes until 8:15. So if it gets posted a little bit later, I apologize, but that's why, because I do 2 classes back to back on Wednesdays. Okay.
And
I have a
another
question.
question. I have
Oh,
another question. You said you're gonna do a lecture. I mean, you're gonna do a recording for the next week's class. Would that be posted on a
the,
Sunday or
yes, that will be posted on the Sunday that module opens.
okay?
Okay. Let me see if I can show you guys week 2, because I mean, there's really no harm in showing that to you. Hold on.
Hey, Miss Young, I just want to let you know that I was on.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
I'm glad to have you here.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a little bit of leeway with the first week because it's, getting into Zoom and stuff is a little bit confusing, getting the times correct. So no worries at all. I'm just glad you made
No,
it.
I've been on. I had got back on. I've been on. Like I've been on since the whole syllabus.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're here. Okay, so let's jump back in here to Canvas so I can show you guys kind of what a week announcement typically will look like. I need to get out of student view. Don't pay attention to how many announcements I have in here because I have like everything loaded for the entire course. So this is what you guys are going to get access to on Sunday. This is our announcement going into week 2. Okay, so it has read chapters 6 through 10 of your textbook. Review and listen to the PowerPoint attached below, which covers the content you'll be reading in your textbook. And then I'm going to have it posted here for you. And that'll be a YouTube video. It'll be my lecture. It should be less than 2 hours, hopefully. Some of them may be a little longer, but this is where you'll find that. Okay. And then you are going to get access to what I'm calling or referring to as our classroom PowerPoint, which I have posted down at the bottom here for you. This classroom PowerPoint is what we're going to be taking notes on and going through together. Okay. Basically, it's just a more condensed version of the material that I'm lecturing on during the recording that I will have posted for the week. Okay. And then I have attend at 2 p.m., my Zoom ID. I have the assignments that are going to be due next in Module 2. And then an announcement that says this week we'll have quiz 1. So next Wednesday, we're going to have our first quiz. And it's going to be covering content from this week, the material that we'll go over at the end of class. And it'll also cover a little bit of content for week 2 material. So that's why it's important for you guys to watch those recorded lectures before you even come to class, right? So that way you at least have an idea of what we're going to be going over in class time, and also to prepare you better for the quiz that you're going to be taking right at the start of class next week. Okay. And like I said when we were talking about the syllabus, it's really important that you guys are here on time. That way, you don't miss the access code for the quiz. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For quizzes and exams, when does our grade um get released?
Your quizzes are immediate. You'll see them, they post immediately after you've submitted the quiz or at the end of class. Your exams. So we test Wednesdays. Every week or every exam, all the professors get together and we do an item analysis where we go through commonly missed questions, and that's how we determine, like, do we give points back? Do we get rid of a question? Whatever. But that does not happen until Friday nights at 8:30. So your quizzes, your exams will typically be posted Friday night, probably around like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. of the week you've tested. So you guys, unfortunately, since you test on Wednesday, will have to wait a couple days to get your exam results. Okay. Um, I can't pull up your grade book because I don't want to, do that. But what I will do is one of the things you guys can do in Canvas is there should be an option where you can put in your grades in Canvas to see what you need to get on an exam to be successful. Um, I will have all of the exams and all the quizzes unpublished so that you guys can kind of like play around with that. If for some reason you can't figure that out on your own, reach out to me. I would be more than happy to put in your grades and try and figure out for you what you need to get on specific exams. Okay. Um, when it comes to office hours for me, my schedule is pretty flexible. I don't have posted office hours because since I work in an OR, my schedule is different every single week. Um, so it's hard for me to like narrow down specific days or times. But I would love to meet with you guys anytime you have any questions. If you want to review something specific, if you scored low on an exam and you want to review that exam, or you want to, if you need some help or some guidance on what to study, like definitely reach out because those are some things that I would love to be able to meet with you guys about. Or really for anything that you may need. So just email me, shoot me a message on Canvas, and we can come to a time that we can meet. Times that you guys will have to meet with me. If you score under 78% on your first exam, I will be reaching out to you and I'll say, hey, like I saw that your grade wasn't as high as you may have wanted. Let's meet and let's go over what we need to do to be successful moving forward in your other tests. Okay. So that first exam, if you score a little bit lower, you'll hear from me, and it's in everybody's best interest just to do a quick meeting and go over some things or some areas that we can improve upon. Okay. Any questions about syllabus, weekly announcements, recordings, anything like that?
So are we going to be allowed, if we have an emergency or anything like that and we miss the test or the quiz, are we going to be allowed to take it if we had a proper documentation?
Yes.
Okay.
That being said, though, if you reach out to me after the exam and you had already missed class and you didn't communicate with me prior to the start of class, it's a little bit harder to like organize that. If you reach out to me the day of class, but it's still before class time and you just say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm currently doing whatever in the ER, whatever. I'll say, okay, don't worry about it. Just make sure you have a documentation of your visit, get a doctor's note, submit that to me, and then I make a separate exam for you to retake. And then you and I would come up with a date and time to meet um, and test.
Okay.
Okay. The makeup exams, if this were to happen, those makeup exams need to happen within that like Wednesday to Wednesday period. You can't go longer than a week after the exam before before retaking. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's cover some things about Zoom that's a little bit different than an in-person class. So when I'm lecturing or whenever we're in class together, the expectation for you guys is you need to be on your screen at all times. Your screen needs to be on. Um, Preferably your screen is muted, just because, like, there's background noise sometimes. People are like kids are running around, animals running around, whatever. So preferably your screen is muted. We'll talk about a little bit in this orientation PowerPoint, but if you guys if somebody falls asleep, it happens. We're tired. You guys work, you have lives, you have multiple things going on. Okay. Unfortunately, I will have to remove you from the Zoom and you would miss attendance for that day. Okay. So you need to be present on screen with your Zoom muted during class time to receive full attendance credit. Okay. If you have to step away or I don't know, your device is being weird, your internet connection is super funky, just shoot me a message through the Zoom on this chat feature down here so that I know what's going on, and then I won't take points off of your attendance. Okay, things happen. Um, so no worries on that at all. If I don't see your chat immediately when you send it, I see them eventually and it'll be okay. All right. So that's a little bit different than being in person, just as far as Zoom requirement goes. Let me pull up this orientation PowerPoint and we'll go through some of it because I think there's 70 slides. So we'll go through most of it, but a lot of it we already talked about. All right, this lovely PowerPoint everybody gets in each class, so we go over it just so everybody knows what the standard is across the board. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So this goes through online learning. Okay, so I'm going to be your guys' point of contact if there's any issue, either if it's with Canvas, if it's with a grade, if it's anything. Please reach out to me first, okay? In my profile, which I'll show you on Canvas, I have my email that you can reach me at as well as my Zoom ID. So please don't hesitate to reach out, okay? Like I said, message me on Canvas or whatever. So I am going to be your primary first source of contact whenever it comes to anything that's relating to our online classroom or any issues that you may have online. Okay. Um, if you cannot get a hold of me, your next person would be Professor McBride. She's your course lead. And she, right here, this slide number 4, this is her email address and where you can reach her. Okay. And this PowerPoint I have listed in our week 1 announcement. So you have that for the rest of the semester. Okay. If for some reason myself or Professor McBride is not getting back to you, then you will go above both of us and you'll reach out to Dr. Brown. Okay. She is the head honcho, as we can call her. She is the dean of the online nursing. She is the big boss. So if you need something that Danielle and I can't help you with, please send her an email. Okay. She has her phone number listed for you as well. For anyone who has testing accommodations, it is a little bit different on the online setting. However, we still do our testing all together. The only difference would be your accommodation would allow for more time for your exam on ExamSoft, and that would be pre-programmed in by Darlene or by Deb Northrup, who is going to take your accommodations, and they'll submit that to ExamSoft so that you have longer to take your test. Okay. If you have testing accommodations and you wish to test in a separate room outside of other students, please let me know that, preferably way ahead of the time, so that I can have an extra professor come to our exams, because I'll put you in a breakout room and then you'd be just by yourself without any other student in the Zoom. Okay, but we all do still test all together. So if you have accommodations, you'll need to send documentation of that to myself, to Professor McBride, and to Dr. Brown. Okay, so make sure you do that sooner than later. I showed you guys where you can go through for your the help desk that's on your homepage in Canvas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on netiquette because I hope that we're all going to be respectful and we know how to be mindful of other people and be respectful to them while we're in class, even if it's not an in-person setting, that all still applies. We kind of talked about our appearance, so you have to be appropriately dressed and please stay on your Zoom whenever we're in class, preferably no sleeping. That might hurt my feelings just a little bit, but it's okay. Um, you can read through this policy here, our testing policy, and our drug use policy. We discussed our attendance. Let's see. In this slide here, it goes through a little bit more in detail about our discussion board posts, what needs to be posted when your HESI remediation and stuff is due, and then when your due dates, how you can find those and how you can access those, okay? Which is you just referring to your syllabus or to your weekly module. Here we have our academic integrity, so no cheating. Any plagiarism will be flagged whenever we're running our submissions through our AI technology, as well as like whenever you submit your teaching plan in week, whatever it is, 8, 9, we send it through a plagiarism check. So it'll flag if there's too much stuff that's been copied and pasted from the web, and I'll be reaching out to you if that is the case. Here is our AI policy. So it can be used only by approved instructors on selected assignments. For us, that doesn't really apply to any of the assignments in this class. AI shouldn't be used for any of your assignments. Please feel free to use it to your advantage whenever you're taking notes or whenever you're listening to my recording. I know that it can be beneficial to make study guides. There's AI is not evil, it's just we don't want you to use it in place of using your brain. So if it's making you a study guide or it's helping you condense your recordings or your lecture, fine. If that's what's helping you, go for it, more power to you. But just try to avoid using it. Don't use it whenever writing a discussion post or submitting any of your homework assignments. Okay? This goes through your code of ethics for nursing. A list of sites that we do not want you to use because they do a lot of cheating. We talked about our late submission policy, our attendance policy is listed here for you. So like I said, we went over a lot of stuff already for this, so we might not
Did
need to
we
even go over it too much.
did we touch on, well, was it asked about? I probably missed it. If we miss a test, to make up that test if we missed it.
Oh yeah. So if you have to miss a test, just make sure you submit. You keep hold of any documentation saying as to why you missed the exam, whether a doctor's note or whatever. That you would just communicate with me. Okay. And then I would talk with Professor McBride and make sure that we could schedule you another time to take the test. Preferably, please reach out to me before the exam. After the exam is a little bit harder for the attendance purposes. So just keep me posted if there's something that comes up. And if you have to miss an exam, we can try and schedule a different time for you to test. Okay.
Uh, Typically, it's been if you miss the first day of the exam, you can make it up, but you're automatic deducted 10 points. Is that the same way for online?
I don't believe so. I didn't adhere to that policy. I had a couple people that had to take a test last semester over because of some emergency medical stuff, and we just scheduled a different time to test. Um, Online is different in the fact that we are stricter as to like what would qualify as an absence and what would be allowed to be have a retake on the exam. So like if you're if you're reaching out to me an hour before the test and you're like, I was out doing this and I'm not going to make it home in time, I'm not going to be on Zoom right away, then that isn't going to be an appropriate excuse and you would just receive a 0 on the exam, unfortunately. But if you say, like, I'm in the emergency room or there's something going on with my family or I had a family member pass away, that is definitely a different kind of circumstance and we would make the exception. But we are a little bit stricter as to who we allow to test or like what circumstances will allow for you to make up an exam. All right. Okie dokie. Let's see what else I want to go over in here. Oh, okay. So for each exam, we are going to offer review sessions, and they are going to be Zoom sessions online. Okay. And each professor is going to have a different time allotted for their review session. You do not need to attend these. These are completely optional. It's not part of your attendance grade or anything like that. It's just helpful. And it's a really good resource for you guys as you're preparing and you're studying to take your exams. Um, and every professor will offer at least one review session, I believe. And you don't need to come to mine. You can go to a different professor's, okay? And those review sessions are going to be posted in your announcements, and they happen the week before or the week or early in the week of the exam, okay? We'll have one session for each exam and then a session for the HESI maternity exam at the end of class, at the end of the semester, okay? I think they're really awesome. I mean, in my exam reviews, I usually spend the time going through Kahoot questions that are like similar to stuff that you'll see on the exams. Okay. Um, so that's typically what I like to do with my exam review time. Each professor is different. So if you guys can go or make it to some of them, I definitely would encourage that. I think it's helpful when you're studying. Okay. Tutoring, all of us, all the instructors offer tutoring. For mine, like I said, I don't have designated office hours, but if you need tutoring or you think that would be beneficial, please reach out to me and we can come to an agreement on like times and dates that we can meet, okay? We went over our grades and our assignment and key graded assignments. This here is talking a little bit more about homework scores. So week 1 through 5, which we're in right now, I don't have your guys' homework grades turned on. So if you log into Canvas and you've submitted like your technology and your literacy check and your syllabus quiz and you've done your OB math calculations and you've done your um, introduction and I've graded your introduction post already, it might say that you have an F in Canvas, okay? Please do not panic. You do not have an F. It's just showing that because you don't have any of those key graded assignments in yet. As soon as you guys take quiz 1 next week, that will change. That grade will not show an F anymore, okay? So it's just showing that because I don't have your homework scores turned on, okay? So for weeks 1 through 5, your homework scores will be off. So the grade that you'll see in Canvas is just your key graded assignment grades. So quizzes, exams. In week 6, I will turn your homework scores back on, and that is going to show you what your grade is like with homework factored in. Okay? I turn those grades back off in week 8, and then they will stay off until after your HESI exam and after your remediations are complete at the end of term. Okay? Does anyone have questions about that? Awesome. All of our exams and our quizzes are proctored in Zoom at normal class time. Okay. For quizzes, like I said, we don't do like, I'm not going to check your background. I'm not going to check your desk or your testing area. But obviously, like, cheating is not tolerated. So if we do find out that you've been cheating on quizzes or exams, you will get a 0 in the class and you'll you'll fail the course. Okay. For exams, it's a little different. You'll come to class, and I will need you guys to show me a student ID. If you do not have a student ID, I'll need to see an ID that has your picture and your first and last name. Okay, so that can be a driver's license, whatever it may be, passport, whatever. Um, for the exams, I'll also have you show me a 360 view of your room. Have you show me the surface that you're testing on, and then you are permitted a whiteboard for your exam. So I'll have you show me that whiteboard before we start testing to make sure it's clear, and then you'll be good for testing. Okay. Um, for the test, you have 75 minutes. For quizzes, you have 30 minutes. Okay. At the end of the allotted time, the test will just shut off. Okay. So, I mean, even if you have a couple questions left on your exam, it will just automatically shut off whenever that time runs out. So, if you do have those accommodations, that's why it's so important for you to get those turned in so that you have an extension on your time. Okay. For
For
your,
the exams,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
You're
For
fine.
the exams, I know you said that for quizzes and our exams, we have math um, questions on there. So are we allowed to have uh, for our exams and quizzes like pen and paper?
So, your exam, you'll have that whiteboard, which you can use. It has to be dry erase so that you can't like keep things because then it's like if you're writing it, then we just that's just a risk with cheating, right? So for the whiteboard, you can use it for your math problems and stuff. You'll just have to show me at the end of the exam that you've erased all of your work. Okay. For quizzes, there's not too much math on the quizzes. I think there might be like one question or two. So yes, you can use scrap paper if you need to for the quiz questions. We just ask that like you're not sharing that, you're not copying it, whatever, and that it gets thrown away after your quiz.
Can we brain dump like before, like we show you this whiteboard is empty and nothing's on it, and then you're like, okay, we're getting ready to start. Can we go ahead and write stuff down on it then?
Yeah, after you show me your board is clear and you show me your desk
Hmm.
and I make sure that there's like you don't have a textbook out, right?
Right.
You guys can put notes down or whatever after I see your whiteboard initially because then we'll be testing. So yeah, as long as you're not like leaving the site, you're not leaving your course, that's fine. Because
All
we
right.
do get notifications anytime somebody comes in and out of Zoom or anytime you switch to a different screen, ExamSoft gets an alert for that. Okay. The other thing, whenever we're
For the
taking, sorry, go ahead.
for the OB math assignment that we had, I know it said something about using Word document for to I guess like work out the problems. I couldn't do that. I used just like my a pen and paper.
Yeah,
Um, so I know it said like if you wanted to review it or go over like if we missed them, we can send it to you. Could we just be able to send you like a picture of what we worked out on pen and
yeah,
paper?
definitely. Yeah. So you guys can either, I mean, whenever you submit it, it's not, you don't need to submit like your work. Okay. It just has your grade, and reads the answer. If you want to go over your grade or if there's something that you missed that you want me to review with you, you can send me, the document that you used to do the math on, and then I can either schedule a meeting with you to go over it in person, or I can send you like the actual worked out answer for the problem. But yeah, that's fine. You can send me that if you need, for sure.
For the exams, can we go to the school and sit in like one of our rooms to do it? Because um on Monday I had my peds class and I have a desk that has a hutch up top and it has like all my books, folders, binders, like stuff like that. And she said I would have to remove everything from there, which I'm not gonna move all this stuff that I have up here. So would we be able to just go to the school and do it in like one of those private rooms?
Yeah. Yeah. The exam, like you can test wherever you have Wi-Fi, wherever you have access to your laptop or your phone. Um, the it will all stay the same though, where you will need to just not have any material from the course present on the screen during your exam. But yeah, you can take it wherever. The only rules with it is if you're driving or you're in a car for any part of class, that's not acceptable. Mostly it's for your safety, right? Like I don't know if you're driving or if you're a passenger, and so if you're in the in your car for class, that could be a reason for me to ask you to leave Zoom and get off Zoom until you're in a safer environment. So you can't take quizzes and you can't take exams from your car. So make sure whenever you're here for class for an exam or a quiz that you're physically in some place. It can be on campus, it can be at your house, it can be, I don't even care if like you're in a library, Chipotle, whatever, as long as you can show me that you're not in a car and that you're safe. Okay.
Okay, could we be at work during class time if they allow us to take the class because my job will allow me to attend class during my work schedule, even though I'm off the clock. But just to come back home and try to get on Zoom and all that stuff like that at my job during class time.
Yeah, as if your workplace is fine with that, go for it.
Okay, okay,
That's very nice of your employer to let you sit in class while you're
okay,
still at work. But yeah, really the only time that we're big sticklers on it is if you're in a car. If you're in a vehicle, I'm gonna have to ask you to get off Zoom.
okay.
For your exam, the other thing I want to talk to you guys about, just so this can kind of help limit confusion leading into exam one. You will also need to have two devices that day. You're going to have the device that you use to test, whether that's your laptop or a iPad, whatever it is. That will be your testing device. And then you'll have your phone, which you'll log into Zoom so that you can be on Zoom during the exam. So you'll technically need to have two devices that day, but only one of your devices will have your Zoom on it, right? So a lot of students, what they do is they use their laptop for testing, and they have their phone that they pull Zoom up, and they're in the Zoom for the proctor portion of it. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes.
Makes sense. It's just new.
Yeah, it's weird. Testing in an online platform is definitely a learning curve for everyone,
Tell me you
especially.
don't trust me without telling me you don't trust me.
I know, right? It's like actually, let's have four different devices, everyone.
But it's fair. I understand.
Yeah. Um, the other thing about that too is whenever you go to get your exam soft, okay, and you're downloading that software to be able to take your exam, whatever the device is that you plan on testing with should be the device that you download the exam soft onto, okay? If you download exam soft onto your phone, and then testing day comes along and you try to log in on your laptop, it's not going to work because that software is not going to be there for you. So you need to make sure whenever you're accessing the software that you're doing it on the device that you're going to be testing with.
Can I download the software on a separate device as well? Like, can I download it on my laptop and my tablet?
I believe it's only you only get one download,
Gotcha.
I think. So that is why I had a student last term who had a computer, a laptop that she had downloaded it originally onto, but it was her friend's laptop that she was just borrowing. And then
Hmm.
she tried to download it onto her own personal iPad and it gave her a whole bunch of issues. So just to try and like mitigate all the like technological challenges or whatever, just pick whatever device you feel the most comfortable testing with, and then that will be where you download your software.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. And then I will have the number for the ExamSoft like control or help center because during exams there's going to be like some people won't be able to get into the exam right away, other people will. So we have the ability to have you guys go into a breakout room if you come up with any technology issues. And one of the other professors, if it's not myself, will be in there to help kind of troubleshoot. So that happens a lot on test day. But the biggest thing going in is you guys will have to just download that software and there will be a practice that you'll download and take just to make sure that you can access the ExamSoft platform. Okay. I think that's the biggest thing with exams and quizzes. We ask for tests that you are alone. I understand people that have small kids or you have people over or whatever, like sometimes it's inevitable. If that isn't your situation, like just let me know. Like, hey, one of my kids is sick. If they pop into the screen, that's what's happening. Okay, it's not going to get you a fail. It's not going to make you like not be able to test. That's okay. Things happen. Okay. So, here's what we just talked about having those two devices for exams and quizzes. Okay. Like I said, quizzes are at the beginning of class. Only one attempt on your quiz. They're 15 minutes, I guess. I thought they were 30 minutes, but they might have changed it. So I think it's 15 minutes for your 10 question quiz. Okay. Um, if you're off camera for any part of your exam or your quiz, I'll reach out to you in your Zoom and just say, hey, can you please come back on in your camera? If you do not come back into the camera where I can see you, we will have to give you a 0 on the exam or quiz, okay? During your test, like I said, if you're having any technological issues, stop your exam or pause your exam and reach out to the instructors that are in there proctoring with you, which will be myself and one of the other professors in the course, okay? That way you don't just keep going and it's not recording your answers or something else is happening or it kicks you out. Okay. This talks about your accommodations, sending them to your dean and to myself so that we can get those into ExamSoft for you. Um, this goes through all the stuff that we just went over. Okay. And like I said, definitely please try and give me a notice about if you have to miss an exam before the exam, because if not, you will just automatically be given a 0 on it. So I do want to hear from you before class and before testing, okay? If you have to miss. All right. Here is more information on our homework assignments. Okay, so definitely staying organized is going to help you. This goes over the math, the OB math calculations. So if you guys are confused after we have class together on how to submit an assignment or what to do, this PowerPoint, which is in your week 1 announcement, has everything step by step from a Canvas point of view. Okay, so it'll show you how to do the assignment, where to submit it, and what to do for that. Okay. Um, this goes through our NCLEX review questions, which we can talk about more in detail whenever we have one of those that is due. I believe that is not next week. I think it's the week after. And the biggest thing with that is how you format it. So we can go through that in more detail whenever it's like coming up. Right now, you guys don't even have access to this assignment. So I feel like going through it is going to make things more confusing. If you have more questions over it, please feel free to ask me. But I don't want to like start talking about something that you guys don't even have access to and get you all confused. Okay. So we'll go through these in a little bit more detail either next week or the week after, as well as our sim chart. You guys should have a practice sim chart coming up here if you haven't already. I believe that's in this week that you guys should be able to get into Evolve and you should be able to see the assignment and see like how to do it. Okay. These sim charts are, like I said, you get one chance at it. So definitely take your time, use the resources that you have available to you so that you can get as many points on it as possible. Okay. Um, we talked about discussions. We talked about our teaching plan. and we will talk more about the HESI exam and practice stuff when it comes closer because that is not until the end of the term. Your specialty exam is the only exam that you are not going to take in Zoom. That is going to be in person at your classroom. I think that's how it is for every course that you guys take, is they should be in person. These exams, the maternity, the final course exam. When the time comes, I will post a schedule of your campus and when that exam is going to be offered for you. And then you'll have to register, which we can talk about like week 10, week 9 or 10, whenever that becomes available to you. Okay. Our benchmark for this exam is 900. And there's a little like grading scale as to how much you need to remediate depending on what the assignment or what the grade is that you got on your HESI. Okay. And I think that's it for this PowerPoint. Anyone have any other questions about that kind of stuff? Lots of information, guys. You're doing awesome. Thank you for sticking with me. Um, I believe that covers, let's see. The only thing I want to show you is my profile in Canvas so that you guys know where to find my email. And then we'll take a break. Okay. So when you're in Canvas, you're going to be able to see like you can go over to people here on the side and you'll be able to see like here's Darlene, who's Dr. Brown. She's the head. Here's Danielle. She is technically listed in our course. And then here's mine. So you can click on me and you should be able to get my biography here. I have my Zoom ID listed here for you. And then I have my email posted down here as well. Okay. So then you can go ahead and like send me an email or whatever. But you can also send me a message just through Canvas and I will get that sometimes even quicker than I see my emails. So there's multiple ways that you can get a hold of me, but definitely I do want to hear from you if there's something that you need help with or whatever. Okay. Um, but that is how you find me. All right. So at this time, I think we can go ahead um, and take a break. Let's go ahead and plan to be back in like 15 minutes. So for my time, that's going to be around like 3:45, 3:50. So just in like 15, 20-ish minutes, just plan on being back, okay? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's maybe somewhere in like the notifications we received.
Yeah, go ahead.
But we have class from 2 to what time? I'm sorry.
It's 4:41.
Oh, okay, perfect. Then I hadn't, yeah, that was right then.
No worries, you're good.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, if everyone wants to go ahead and turn your screen back on, we'll get into the content for this week.
I'm trying to switch it over before this thing dies.
No worries.
It's just been saying the meeting link is invalid, but I don't know how or why because
Huh,
I'm on a whole nother tablet, so it shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? It shouldn't pick up that
right.
shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's all right. We'll work it out.
All right, let me get my PowerPoint pulled up here.
I can't do it. It's crazy.
So,
What
like
it?
I kind of had mentioned before, this should be the only week that I'm lecturing during class. This week was different because we had to go over all that orientation stuff and all those the orientation PowerPoint. So, and this content that we have for this week is not very much. But moving forward, you guys will have that recorded lecture um, to reference. All right. Is everyone able to see the PowerPoint? Before we get started, are there any other questions that we have over orientation stuff, homework, what you guys need to have done for this week, or anything like that? Awesome. Well, then let's jump into it. So, this content is going to be on quiz one next week. Okay, so there will be content from this PowerPoint as well as content for the week two material that you guys will have access to on Sunday. Okay, but getting started, this covers chapters one, two, and three of your book, and we're going to be talking about family cultural health promotion and assessment. Okay, so getting started, when we talk about maternal and newborn nursing, we are talking about the care of childbearing women and their families through all stages of pregnancy, birth, and then that includes the first 6 weeks after birth, so their recovery period. Okay. So in this class, we're going to be talking about the menstrual cycle, fertility. We're going to be talking about conception, how that happens from that stage of the game all the way until 6 weeks after this mom has delivered, baby is here, and the assessment of the newborn. Okay. Maternity nurses, we're playing a vital role in each stage of a woman's pregnancy. Throughout pregnancy, these patients are going to be seeing not only their OBGYNs but also nursing staff. They may have some tests that the nurses as bedside nurses we need to help them with. So it's important just in general to know the birth process, the labor process. For my nurses, future nurses that are wanting to be in the ER, you guys might get lucky enough to help deliver a baby someday because not all women make it up to the labor and delivery floor, right? So, this is knowledge that everybody needs to have, okay? Um, so, when we talk about any type of nursing, we also need to look at like social detriments of health. Some things, some factors that might impact whether or not a mom is able to get the care that they need, right? So we've seen a lot of advances in nursing and in healthcare in the last 150 years. Unfortunately, though, these health disparities are still existing that can impact whether or not a mom is receiving the appropriate care that she needs or the infant after delivery of the baby. So there is unfortunately still some instances of maternal morbidity rates, and it has increased in certain patient populations. And this is stuff that we're seeing here in Western culture where, and like that's not even taking into account those areas of the world that have even less access to healthcare. So this is something that is important to any healthcare provider, right? So the biggest thing that people face is limited access to healthcare. We're talking about like the location of the nearest hospital facility. For some people, this is hours and hours away from them. So I did a travel nursing assignment to Montana. Um, and I was on a labor and delivery unit that was a 3-bed, 4-bed LDRP. I was the only nurse on the floor because they only averaged like 30 births a month, maybe. Um, and I was in the middle of like 4 different Native American reservations. And for some people that came to the hospital, I was the closest hospital to them by 5 hours. Okay. So, like, this is something that we see here and is common in the States. So, people have very limited access to healthcare. So, as nursing, like, what can we do for them to help limit this detriment? What are some things that we can do to limit these disparities? Because it does make a big difference, right? Um, also, like, can patients get to their appointments? Right? Everybody is so quick to say, "Oh, this patient, she's non-compliant." Is it really non-compliance, or does she just not have access to the resources that she needs? Right? There's a big difference. Okay, so we need to look at that. The other thing too is sometimes whenever we talk about health literacy, patients may not be able to understand discharge instructions or medical advice, right? So, like, patients that may not have English as their first language may not know English. If we're trying to give them education in English and they are not English speaking, that is not benefiting them at all. So, these are things that we need to take into account when we're doing discharge teaching for our patients and whenever we're educating them in general. Like, we need to make sure we have a translator present. We need to make sure that they are getting the information that they need so that they can have the best care possible. Okay. The last one we'll talk about are health disparities, like our socioeconomic status, race, and environment. So, when we talk about social detriments of health, we're referring to non biological factors that can have influences on our health care. But unfortunately, like these things that are listed down here are still leading to patients not getting the care that they need or that they deserve. Um, and it's something that unfortunately, like nurses can sometimes play a part in. And so it's your job going into this field that you are a nurse that helps limit social detriments of health or health disparities rather than playing a part in it, right? Um, when we talk about socioeconomic status, we're talking about like financially, is a patient able to afford their health care? Are they able to get or afford transportation to and from the hospitals? Uh, the other thing too, like, so you guys will hear me reference Amish patients a lot. I live close to Amish country. My husband and I lived in Amish country for about 4 years, and the hospital I worked for, we had a lot of Amish patients. And that is a completely different culture of patient. And a socioeconomic status sometimes plays a role, just like in any culture, in any type of patient. They had a harder time like getting to appointments, and they don't have health insurance, so they're paying for everything out of pocket. They're self pay. So we need to take into consideration like what realistically, how can we limit the amount of visits that these patients are having while also still getting them the information and the resources that are going to be very important for their health. Okay, you have to get a little creative sometimes whenever we're talking about this kind of stuff. There are some things that we have in place to reduce health disparities. Um, some things that are, there's different agencies that are in place to help minimize them. So, like Healthy People 2030 Goals is a really good reference whenever we're talking about improving the health of all Americans, especially like reducing the amount of disparities in specific cultures in America. So the five like overarching goals of 2030, you guys can find them like on their website. I didn't list them all down here for you because they're all pretty long. But these are all things that we can be doing to try and help limit health disparity in America. So, like, um, preventing diseases, right? So that could be setting up free clinics, where even we're just educating patients, right? One of the biggest part of healthcare is simply just the educational standpoint, and just if we're able to reach these patients in a way that is meaningful, that they understand. So establishing free clinics is a great resource for patients. Helping to provide translators if we do have like literacy issues with a patient, or they need just somebody to translate for them, making sure that that's available for them. um, Making sure they have transportation to hospitals. So I know a lot of hospitals now offer transportation services. That's something that we should be advocating for our patients, specifically patients that we know have a harder time getting to their appointments, right? We can engage the public in these efforts. We can establish communities that can help reach at-risk populations. And overall, just like making sure these resources are available in an equal way to all patients, right? To try and help limit these disparities. So, when we talk about any issues that were faced by our patients, we also have to talk about some of the problems with our healthcare system. So, not all of the things that we could talk about are probably on this slide, but we hit the biggest ones that the textbook talks about mostly. So, our structure for healthcare is sometimes challenging for patients because it can be fragmented. Obviously, we talked about how sometimes healthcare is inaccessible, it is expensive, and it's something that that's like real. Patients aren't coming into the hospitals because they either can't afford to, they're not anywhere close to one, or they're worried that the care that they're going to receive is not worth their time or their money, right? So that's something that we as nursing need to try and help reform. Okay. One of the ways that we can do this is by helping reduce medical errors. Okay, so that's our S bar, making sure that we're providing all of the information to providers whenever we have a patient that we're caring for, so that all of these different aspects or facets of their life are addressed, right? So if we know a patient needs some help with transportation, then we need to get social work or a case manager involved to help facilitate this for them. That starts with nursing. That starts with at the bedside. Making sure informed consent is legal, it is legible, and it's legit. So going through everything with a patient, even if the doctor is the one legally that has to explain informed consent, right? They're the ones that have to get it from the patient. But as nursing, we need to be able to go through it again with these patients and make sure that they fully understand what they are signing. Okay. Um, and then we're also talking about medication administration. That is a huge part of nursing. And you guys have probably had it just already nailed, ingrained into your brains. We need to have our right patient, right dose, right time, right route, right medication. All of the rights of medication administration need to be correct whenever we're giving meds. Okay. So these are just some things that nursing can do to help reduce problems within the healthcare system. Okay. These patients are already nervous, they're already scared, they're already facing potential financial issues and other type of involvement in things that are surrounding their health care. So we need to try and make this experience for them as seamless as possible. Okay. Um, Reducing medical errors is a big one because the medical errors are a major cause of death in the United States. Okay. So that kind of can fall on nursing. It falls within that SBAR system. Other things that are problems within the U.S. healthcare system would be it's expensive, the limited access, and then we do need to have some type of healthcare reform to make it so that these things aren't as big of an issue for our patients. So trends that we're seeing in nursing practice, which this is all stuff that you guys maybe have seen before. So evidence-based practice, right? This is vital for nurses. We need to stay up to date on evidence-based research and best practice. This has changed. This changes every year. Okay, so like I learned we had a different different Foley catheter come to the hospital, and we had just had an in service for for the previous Foley catheter. So this stuff is changing. They're finding better ways to prevent infection. They're finding better ways to reduce any med errors. So we need to stay up to date with our evidence-based practice. Your workplace should allow you access to resources that will help you with evidence-based practice. You should have some type of resource through your employer for this stuff so that you can stay up to date. Okay. Our standard of care. So when we talk about standard of care, we're talking about like negligence, that kind of stuff. So this is the standard of care, the level of practice that a nurse should be providing. That is, you're holding yourself to a standard. You're taking care of this patient. Their life is in your hands. We need to hold ourselves to a standard so that this patient is being well taken care of. Okay. So when we're talking about standard of care and we're talking about negligence, because your book goes into all of those other like subsections of standard of care, the biggest one is our negligence. So whenever we're determining legal negligence, the care given is compared to standard of care. So that being said, if the standard was not met and harm resulted to a patient, then negligence will have occurred. So that's kind of whenever they're talking about negligence, what we're comparing it to. We're comparing it to that standard of care. Okay. Like we talked about in the previous slide, we need to be preventing any errors on our side of things. And then let's see. So like with JCO, like a do not use list, like for certain medications or sounds alike list or that kind of stuff, like medications that are usually alerting whenever they're on your MAR that says like double check, double verification, that kind of stuff. And then when we get into centennial events, that's talking about any event that is not due to underlying conditions or natural courses of a patient's condition. So an outlying thing that happens to the patient that directly affects their care. Okay. So these are just some terminology things that we go over. I'm sure you guys have heard them in different classes before. Okay. So let's move on here. We're talking about the family. Family plays a major role in any type of healthcare setting. You guys will have interactions with family members your entire career. This is not something that is only specific to maternal and newborn nursing, but it is more prevalent because oftentimes there's more people than just the mom that is impacting this care, okay, who needs education as well. So I have the definition of a family listed up there. We have the different structures that can be found in each family. So your book goes into a lot of detail on each one of these. So your family, your nuclear family, your multi-generational, non-biological parent families, cohabitating parent families, married blended families, your single parent families, and then your LGBTQ plus families. Okay. As a nurse in general, we need to be cognizant of that that families come in all different shapes and sizes. We need to be formatting our care specifically to meet the needs of our patient as well as the family system. So taking that into consideration whenever we're deciding plan of care for our patients is important. Okay. You guys should have a basic or general understanding of what each of these family groups are. So your nuclear family is like your husband, wife, children, your quote unquote traditional American family, which I feel like is not that traditional anymore. I think that families are evolving. So that might not be the case for much longer. And then like your multi-generational consists of 3 or more generations. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these because it's basically definition. So please go through in your textbook and make sure you know like the basics of what each of these family units and family structures mean, and how it could potentially impact the way that you care for a family, right? When we get into our section, I forget what week it is, but we talk about breastfeeding. We talk about bonding with families, like babies and moms bonding. But like what we have to take into consideration is like if this is like a different type of family structure. If we have a surrogate birth or if we have a same sex couple who's adopting a baby, right? That doesn't just mean like, oh, we're not going to be worried about bonding. Like, no, there's still beautiful, awesome ways for us to get these patients to bond with newborns that we can take into consideration. There's even like different ways that we can manage breastfeeding and all of that kind of stuff. So it's like we need to take this into consideration in our nursing practice, specifically too when we talk about maternal and newborn nursing and how that might affect the family unit and dynamic. Okay. So the family in a cultural context. So the culture of an individual in a group is influenced by their religion, environment, and some historic events. So we need to know that cultural knowledge will include beliefs and values about each facet of life and is passed from one general generation to the next. So across different cultures, there's different ways that patients will take care of each other or their family members whenever they are sick. There's different things that we'll see patients do after a newborn is born that is aligned in their culture. And as a nurse, the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to have from this slide really is that we need to be respectful of other cultures and we need to incorporate that into our plan of care when we're discussing that. So our role here, I have it listed. We must continue to grow in cultural competency as our society continues to grow in cultural diversity. Um, so here I have two things listed. So I can't speak right now. Acculturation and assimilation. Know the difference between these two definitions here. Okay. So your acculturation is referring to changes that occur within one group or among several groups when people from different cultures come in contact with one another. And then assimilation is when a cultural group loses its cultural identity and becomes part of the dominant culture. Okay. So definitely know those two things whenever you're like reviewing for your quiz, the differences between them. So the other thing too to note is that the way a patient is going to respond to healthcare recommendations and suggestions is greatly influenced by their family structure and by their culture. Okay, so as a nurse, if you're trying to tell them to do something that adamantly goes against their cultural beliefs or adamantly goes against their family structure or it just doesn't, it's not pertinent to them, they're going to be way less likely to listen or to do the things that they need to do to best take care of themselves. So we need to take those things into consideration when we're formatting how best to educate our patients. So developing cultural competence. So nurses, this is very important to us in our role. Anywhere that you work, this is going to be something that we need to do. So we implement different assessment techniques to elicit cultural expectations about childbearing. So some things that we can do to be more culturally competent. We can ask them questions like, what do you and your family think you should do to remain healthy during this pregnancy? And that may look different for every patient, right? Some patients or some women may say that they want to do X, Y, and Z during their delivery and during their pregnancy. And for other women, it's going to be completely different. So we need to make sure that we leave these open-ended questions up for them so that they can tell us what they want. So we can best understand what they are expecting from their healthcare. What foods will help to make a healthy baby, right? Like this is not only getting an idea for like their culture, but also like what does their diet look like? This is checking the boxes on multiple different assessments. Okay. And then what can your labor support person do to help you be the most comfortable during labor? That's just including different family members and the different dynamics that they may have surrounding their birth. Okay. Along all these lines, we talk about vulnerable patient populations. And it's our role as nurses to promote inclusivity and cultural competent care to these at-risk patient populations. So women are usually at the top of that list, people of color, adolescent girls. So we talk a lot in this class about adolescent pregnancy. I know last semester a lot of people said on their HESI exam, they had a lot of questions specific about how to take care of adolescents in pregnancy, because that is something that we are seeing as a country. That instance and that is higher now. So we are going to include a lot more teaching about adolescent pregnancy, and that's something that you guys should definitely make sure you're studying whenever we're reviewing that section. Okay. Older women, incarcerated women, immigrant, refugee, and migrant women. Um, Rural versus urban community settings do play a big role in healthcare. Okay. Because in rural settings, you run the risk of there not being hospitals around. In urban settings, you run the risk of the hospitals being really full and busy. So there's two different problems that we're facing whenever we're talking about those two areas. Homeless women is another vulnerable patient population. So we talk a lot in this class, obviously, about women because we're talking about maternal and newborn care, right? This is not the only list of vulnerable patient populations. Women are primarily the ones in the home organizing and establishing health care. If they're facing diversity and are struggling with health disparities, most of the time, according to texts and research, it's likely a result of our socioeconomic circumstances. Um, so there are some significant gaps that are existing in like the quality of care for women compared with men. So this is something that we have to talk about, especially when we're in this course talking specifically about providing care for women. So it's something that is prevalent. Um, when we talk about incarcerated women, so with that patient population, we're not only talking about health disparities from an aspect of they're in the prison system and it adds a different type of component to their healthcare, but these women also oftentimes have a higher rate of or history of sexual abuse and trauma. And that always has to be taken into consideration when we're taking care of a patient. Okay. If I know a patient has a history of sexual abuse, I'm not going to be performing a cervical exam unless she is absolutely 100% comfortable and okay with it, right? And oftentimes, too, we offer them privacy if there's people in the room. Like, obviously, you need to offer privacy, and you just need to handle that situation with a little bit more care. Okay, so these are things to take into consideration when we're caring for different types of patients from different populations. Um, any questions so far? You guys still with me? I know this has been a lot of info today.
How people of color are at risk of are vulnerable?
That's a really good question. So, Um, according to the textbook, women who are in racial and ethnic minorities experience a disproportionate burden of disease and premature death. So, sometimes like women or people in different like of color or different populations have a higher risk or are at a higher risk of having like other chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, that kind of stuff. High blood pressure is also something that's way more prevalent in colored um, patients. So that's something we have to take into consideration too for women, especially in pregnancy, because high blood pressure is a really big thing.
Okay, yeah. Also, like sickle cell and like thalassemia and like anemia problems, right?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly. Yep.
perfect.
So yeah, when we talk about vulnerable patient for people of color, it mainly is referring to their higher instances of comorbidity. The other thing too, I will say about rural women versus urban settings. So like in general, older, less educated women could be in poorer health. And in the rural environment, they may not have as equal of access to um, that information or to like healthcare in general. So that's why we talk about like those different different settings as well. So risk factors pertaining specifically to women, because like I said, we're talking maternal and newborn nursing, so we're talking more about women in general. So certain diseases are more common among people of certain ages or certain groups, like we kind of just discussed. Socioeconomic status affects our birth outcomes, so your rates of maternal and infant morbidity are higher in individuals with a lower socioeconomic class. That's not necessarily because they are sicker than other people. It's mostly because they don't have the resources available to them to sustain a healthier pregnancy, right? So, like, lower socioeconomic class citizens are not going to be able to get as much prenatal care or much prenatal testing as somebody who may not be in that circumstance, right? So if they're not getting the screenings that other women are, they have a higher chance of having some type of high risk in their pregnancy that goes undetected. So that's what we mean when we're talking about um, uh, socioeconomic class and how that affects it. Some other risks would be substance use and abuse. So that is talking about prescription drug use, illicit drug use, and tobacco use. This can all of these things can lead to low birth weight infants, withdrawal, admission to the NICU, fetal death, and then maternal complications. We talk a lot about substance abuse in this course. You guys are going to hear it a lot because we not only talk about it from the maternal aspect when we're discussing labor and delivery, we also talk about it when we look at newborn and we do the newborn assessment portion of this class. So this is something that comes up quite frequently. Another thing is nutritional problems like such as eating disorders. So we will talk about anorexia, bulimia nervosa more in detail. And that also plays a role not only in labor and delivery, but also in the newborn assessment portion of the class. Okay. Obesity is a big one that can cause risk factors in for women or during labor and delivery as well. Stress is a huge thing for everyone. Sleep disorders, and then any type of like sexual practices, risky sexual practices. So that's why when we talk about free clinics and free access to this healthcare, this education, like this is stuff that patients should have access to and shouldn't have to be worrying about like a cost. Like all patients should be receiving like sexual education or, have access to some type of birth control or some type of like contraception or protection. This is something that should be available to them and that we should be able to, as nurses, give them more education on if they are asking for it. Another big thing that we talk about is violence against women. So your textbook goes into a lot more detail of human trafficking on like page 48. There's a whole big section on it that we just don't have time to cover in detail. So definitely we're trying to review that a little bit more before our quiz. As nurses, we are mandatory reporters. We're the ones that are seeing these patients. We're doing their assessment. We're doing their intake. So there are certain things that we need to look for when we're screening for patients who have been subjected to human trafficking or abuse. So some things would be like the woman is the partner, whoever is with them, is speaking for them. They're quiet. They're very quiet. They're lacking eye contact. There's a lot of visible external injuries that are not lining up to the things that they're saying caused them, right? Their partner or whoever's in the room with them refuses to leave the patient alone with a healthcare professional. They don't have valid personal identification. They have like an STD or STI infection that has been not treated for a very long time. You can tell it's very advanced. It's progressed to a later stage. So those are all things like for both abuse and human trafficking that as nurses, like that should kind of like be a red flag to you if you see these kind of things or your patient is displaying these traits during a visit. And it would be something that you would notify either your charge nurse or if you do have like police enforcement on the floor with you, some of the bigger hospitals do, you could let them go in for an assessment or even like case management, social worker. But the most important thing with these patients is we don't want them to leave the hospital. We want to try, if possible, to have them alone, not in a dangerous way, but in a way that we can get some more information from them without them feeling the pressure from the person that is in the room with them. Um, and then we ask them simple yes or no questions to try and get them to feel more comfortable with us. With these patients, like they do not trust anyone, they do not feel comfortable with anyone. They're suspicious of everybody. So gaining trust and talking to them calmly is going to be more beneficial. We don't want like the entire floor bursting into the room, right? Like that's not going to help anything. Intimate partner violence, unfortunately, is the most common form of violence experienced by women worldwide. 1 in every 6 women report being a victim of domestic violence. Battery during pregnancy is Probably one of the hardest things to witness, but it is something that happens, unfortunately. So we need to, so some common elements of intimate partner violence would be emotional abuse, sexual assault, isolation, controlling all aspects of a person's life. If someone has been abused prior to being pregnant, they're more likely to be abused during the pregnancy. Okay. So, a group of patients that we worry about this more with are adolescent pregnant women. So, there's the adolescents coming back in to things. They are at a higher risk of abuse during pregnancy. This is mostly because they lack their own resources, right? So if they're dependent on somebody else to provide for them, they're going to be less likely to leave if there is instances of battery or abuse. So that's something that we need to take into consideration when we're screening adolescent pregnancies. Okay. Our role is that we need to recognize any type of abuse. We need to continue to assess the patient at each visit to see if the abuse is continuing. And then we also need to provide emotional support and assist the mom in forming a plan. So if they do come like on their own during an office visit or whatever, then we need to take advantage of that and use that to talk to them about the things that we may not be able to speak with them about if they have their partner present. Okay. Some people ask, like, why would battery or why would abuse increase during pregnancy? So, like, for many reasons, it can increase. So, one of the biggest ones is the stress of the pregnancy may strain the relationship more. The partner, whoever is causing the abuse, may become jealous of the fetus. They may see it as an intrusion into the relationship in general. Um, there's just a lot of different kinds of psychological stuff at play there that can impact why that would increase the abuse during a pregnancy. Okay. So we're moving on here now to assessment and health promotion. We cover a lot of material really quickly in this course, so that's why it's important for you guys to keep up with like recorded lecture and everything. So page 32 is a really good resource for you guys whenever we're talking about like anatomy. It goes through the anatomy and the structures of the female reproductive system. So I have a chart here. Obviously, this is your uterus. This is the female reproductive system, the vagina and the uterus. We have our muscular organs, which are divided into the corpus and the cervix. So that's listed for you here. Your cervix is here, cervical canal, and then their vaginal opening. Your cervix, the main role of it is to maintain the pH of the vagina, and then whenever there is a pregnancy, the mucus plug forms here in pregnancy, and it will form like right by the cervical opening. Okay. Your uterus serves for the reception, implantation, retention, and nutrition of the fertilized ovum and later the fetus during pregnancy, right? So this is where it's going to grow, right in your uterus here. Okay. Your uterine wall is made up of 3 layers, your endometrium, myometrium, and your peritoneum. Your fertilized ovum attaches to the endometrium. So that could be a question you guys see. Where does the fertilized ovum attach to? And it would be your endometrium, it'd be in your uterus, okay? Your fallopian tubes are out here. That is what provides the passage between the ovaries and the uterus for the movement of the egg. Once the egg is released here from the ovaries, it travels through the fallopian tube down through to the uterus. And then if it's fertilized, it's going to adhere here to the endometrium. Your ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone, and then this is where ovulation occurs, which is the release of the mature ovum at various intervals, right? Which is your menstrual cycle. Okay, so this here is like basic anatomy, guys. So we don't go into super big detail on it because this is stuff that you guys should have received in your anatomy and phys class, but it's also stuff that should be reviewed. This shouldn't be new information for you, but just for the purposes of your quizzes and exams, reviewing this stuff and going back through the function of each structure would be for your benefit, okay? So your external structures and breasts. So here I have pictures of our pelvis. So external structures of the female reproductive system include your mons pubis, which is the fatty pad that lies over the anterior surface of the symphysis pubis. This is where pubic hair grows. Okay, your mons pubis. Your labia minora and your clitoris. I have the diagram down here. Um, when we talk about the labia majora, those are the two rounded folds of fatty tissue covered with skin that extend downward and back from the mons pubis, and that's what's protecting the internals or inner structures of the vagina. Your labia minora is reddish folds of tissue, and that's only visible when the labia majora are separated. Your clitoris is the small structure composed of erectile tissue. It has a lot of sensory nerve endings, and that is located up here on that diagram. Okay, so like I said, this is all anatomy review. Okay, so going through each structure, knowing what it does, how it's pertinent to the menstrual cycle is going to be important. Okay, so when we talk about our bony pelvis, it is the structure that protects the pelvic structures, and it also is going to accommodate a growing fetus during pregnancy. Okay. It anchors pelvic support structures, and there's 4 different shapes of pelvis. So you guys should know these different shapes. So gynecoid, and what I would know the most about it, star it, highlight it, whatever you want to do. It is the most favorable for childbirth because it's rounded. It's going to fit the best with the birth and delivery process as the baby comes down and descends through the vaginal canal. A gynecoid pelvis is going to be the best and the most favorable for birth. Okay, so know that for sure. And then your platyploid is unfavorable for childbirth. And then these other two are just like different shapes. But I want you definitely to know that the gynecoid is the most preferable for our birth. Okay. The breast structures, so there are more pictures and diagrams in your textbook on page 34. The biggest thing is breasts are composed of mammary glands, and each mammary gland is composed of about 15 to 20 lobes. Not every breast is symmetrical or evenly sized. Okay, so a woman can have 2 different sized breasts. That is okay. Breast tissue is not symmetrical. We will talk more. I think it's next week. I don't know. All the weeks and stuff get mixed up. But the changes that a woman's body goes through during pregnancy, and then like breast tissue is one of the main ones and one of the things that we see change the most. So due to an increase of progesterone in pregnancy, the breast tissue will enlarge. And sometimes that growth does not stop until that mom is breastfeeding postpartum. Okay, so they are going to have a lot of change in their breast tissue. That is something that we see with every single pregnancy. So that's important for us to know. We also need to be able to like educate women whenever they're getting mammograms and other routine tests that like there are some like structures in breast tissue that are normal and does not necessarily mean they have cancer. So I don't know if you guys know this, but now like physicians are actually telling women not to perform as often breast exams, self breast exams, because a lot of women were feeling just like, abnormalities in the breast tissue, which is not necessarily cancerous or anything dangerous. Just like differences in breast tissue, and they were getting unnecessary testing done. So that's changed a little bit in healthcare. Okay. Okay. Something that's really important for us to know as we go into this class is the menstrual cycle. So it's normal for a woman to get her first period between the ages of 8 and 11 years old. Recently, girls have been getting their periods earlier and earlier. And people aren't entirely sure why. A lot of people are speculating that it's because of the amount of processed foods that people are consuming at a younger age. Childhood obesity is a little bit higher in America, so that can be influencing when a woman will first get her period. So there's things that can impact when someone will get a period versus when they won't. We go through that again in a different week, talking about things that can impact it. So menarche is the fancy definition for first menstruation, a woman's first period. It can also be delayed or occur quicker because excuse me, of underlying medical conditions. So those are some things that we take into consideration as well. Menstruation, and then menopause is the last period, which that doesn't usually happen until women are a little bit older. Typically, it's after the age of 55. Um, Menstruation is obviously periodic uterine bleeding that begins approximately 14 days after ovulation. The average length is a 28-day cycle. It prepares the uterus for pregnancy, or it prepares a pregnancy. If a pregnancy does not occur, that's when a woman gets her period. Your cycles can be influenced by age, environment, medical conditions, emotional status. So, like, stress plays a big role on periods. Nutrition plays a huge role on periods. So, like, women that have eating disorders will sometimes not have a period ever. And then once they get to an appropriate nutritional intake, their period may restart. Okay, so a lot of things can affect and impact a period. It is regulated all by hormones. So then we talk about the phases of the menstrual cycle. So our follicular phase is when our uterine lining is shed, which is menstruation, and then that lining begins to regrow and thicken to prep for proliferation. That lasts about 10 to 14 days, and then it ends with ovulation, and then the next phase starts. Your luteal phase is a huge surge in LH, which is what happens whenever an egg is released from one of the ovaries. And then the corpus luteum is formed and produces progesterone. So corpus luteum is a what grows on an ovary when there is a viable pregnancy, and it sustains the pregnancy. Okay. Estrogen and progesterone cause the lining of the uterus to thicken and prepare for implantation of a fertilized egg. Fertilization occurs a few days after ovulation. And then, if obviously no implantation occurs, that estrogen and progesterone will decline, so your levels will drop, and the endometrial lining is shed. Okay, so it's important to know the different hormones of pregnancy and of the female reproductive system. The biggest ones are estrogen and progesterone, because that's going to play a role into when we talk about fertilization, we talk about conception, why some women may have to go on progesterone therapy, right? So these things can all impact the care throughout the woman's entire pregnancy, is how their hormones are doing and what their menstruation looks like. Okay, whenever you have a patient that comes in for a routine OBGYN visit, not necessarily even for a pregnancy, but I think right now we're talking about pregnancies. We are going to interview our patient, ask them their name, kind of get a little bit more information about like who all lives in the household with you, like what's your support system look like, that kind of stuff. Always ask open-ended questions. We want to be developing our trust with our patient. Always take into consideration cultural background. Screening for the patient for any drug use or harmful habits that we need to be educating them on, especially in the course of a pregnancy. If they are smokers, how can we point them in the direction of cessation? Screening for abuse, health history, talking about vaccines and screening, breast exam if indicated. And then all these other things that are listed here are things that we need to be doing if we are helping or assisting with a pelvic exam or a swab. Okay. For a pelvic exam, they may use a speculum, they may not, depends on what the provider is specifically looking for. Like a pap test or STIs, it's usually a speculum with a little Q-tip that's inserted. So this down here is a list of things that as nursing we need to be able to assist with. So have the patient empty their bladder, put them in their lithotomy position, which is when they're on their back with their legs up in stirrups, explain the procedure thoroughly to them, and then help perform the examination for the provider if it's necessary. Okay. Your textbook goes in a lot more detail about palpation techniques, but we do not have time to cover that within this first week. So definitely make sure you guys go through this PowerPoint again, which is in your week 1 announcement, so that you can see what pages you guys should go back through and look over. Okay. But I believe that brings us to the end of this PowerPoint. So like I said, this is stuff that is going to be tested on in quiz 1. So review it going into this weekend and next week. Please complete that introduction discussion post, okay? As well as your OB math assignment. Next Wednesday, we have our first quiz. So make sure you're in class on time because we're going to get that started right away. And then in the meantime, if you guys have any questions at all, please, please, please reach out. Please reach out to me and ask me questions. I'm more than happy to meet with anybody at any time. So just let me know if you have anything, okay? Anyone have questions right now?
I think it's been the best decision because I gained a son, became our
No?
vice.
All right. So class typically will end at 4:41. We're only like 2 minutes early. So you guys are good to go. I will see you guys again next week at 2 p.m. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good
Yeah.
week.
You too. Thanks.